I started working with a dental group, 2 brick and mortar stores, 2 Winnebagos that had been retrofitted into
What?
dental offices, and sort of like a standalone hygiene program. And
Wow.
I just started learning everything about dentistry, and I loved it.
All dentists know the common career paths, but how do you know which path is right for you, and are there other options out there?
On this podcast, we will be chatting with industry experts. We want to bring you the knowledge and resources you need to take your career to the next level and break down those industry secrets interview by interview.
We are here to ignite a revolution in the dental landscape
And help you, the dentist, build the career you have always wanted.
I'm Dr. Cassidy Reeder,
I'm Carter Frank.
and welcome to the Revolution Dentistry Podcast. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Revolution Dentistry Podcast. Today, we have a very special treat for you. We have on with us Ken Kaufman, who I'll be introducing right now. Ken is a seasoned leader in the dental industry with a career spanning nearly 2 decades. Since 2006, he has held multiple leadership roles and successfully sold several companies. Ken is recognized as a thought leader in dental finance, having co-hosted the DSOs Growth Secrets podcast from September 2020 to May 2023. He's also shared his expertise as a speaker at numerous events, including the DEO Summer Summit and the American Academy of Dental Group Practice. He is the author of an Amazon #1 bestseller, Finance Secrets to Grow Dental Organizations, the 9 Required Clarity Tools, and the founder of the Finance Leader Network, established in October of 2024, as well as the Dental Finance Forum, founded in January of 2021. Ken is currently the co-founder of Accrual, a dental support company that helps dental groups and DSOs implement accrual accounting, set up financial planning and analysis, get high-quality data for analytics, and fix doctor pay problems. Throughout his career, some of Ken's pivotal roles included serving as CFO and VP at Nuvia Dental Implant Center and CFO at Community Dental Partners. Beyond his professional endeavors, Ken is a dedicated family man who enjoys playing baseball with his kids. In his spare time, he focuses on personal development through meditation, reading, and staying active in the gym. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ken. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be with you guys today.
So Ken, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got introduced to the dental industry?
Sure. So this goes back quite a ways. I'll be as brief as possible. I did an undergraduate degree at BYU, and coming out of school, I started my own business, and it failed. Belly up,
Oh, no.
didn't do well at all. I took a $5,000 loan from my father, and I had to figure out how to pay all that back. I did. I got it paid back in less than a year. But what happened was that steered me toward another startup company that I became one of the early on employees of. And man, I was hooked. We were growing and building that company, and I loved everything about it. I ultimately decided that I wanted to go back and get an MBA to try to help foster my own personal growth, as well as ways that I could perhaps succeed in the business world. I did that. Then I worked for a Fortune 500 company for a year, and then I was given a CFO opportunity, I was way too young, way too inexperienced to have been given those reins. But we grew that company from 30 to $100 million, and
Oh, my
I learned
gosh.
so much in the process. Everything I know about finance, some of it came out of undergrad, some of it came out of MBA school, and a lot of it was just the school of hard knocks and figuring things out, sitting in the CFO seat. And so that then sets up how I got started in dentistry, because I was with this company that we grew, and then I decided to leave and start doing some consulting because I felt like I could help more businesses and perhaps have a bigger impact, which you'll notice is that's a theme for me.
Right.
And I started working with a dental group, 2 brick and mortar stores, 2 Winnebagos that had been retrofitted into
What?
dental offices, and sort of like a standalone hygiene program at certain employers. And
Wow.
I just started learning everything about dentistry, and I loved it. And I've basically been in the dental industry ever since. That was 2006 when that happened.
Wow. Winnebagos, huh?
Yes.
That's a unique model.
They've even been able to, in one of them, they were able to fit a Ceph arm to
What?
do those radiographs. Yeah, it was wild what they were working on and what they were doing.
Okay, would they like travel around the country? What were they up to?
Yeah, so a lot of it was done because this was in Las Vegas, and they were taking these Winnebagos to and parking them next to the employee parking lots of all of the large casinos, and
Wow.
HR departments, telling people, hey, you can go out and you don't have to drive anywhere. You can just go get your teeth cleaned, or whatever their little pitch was. So
That's pretty genius.
and then they did, as that company matured, they started to contract with the government and do other things that were also very profitable.
Right. Wow. That's really awesome. I mean, I feel like your experience being thrown into the deep end, if you will, at that first really big CFO position that you were given. I mean, the amount of value that you received from such an experience, I can't imagine. I mean, you rose to the occasion, it sounds like. I mean, you didn't have that experience, but you rose to the occasion and you went all in and you were able to learn all of the different aspects of being a successful CFO, and you grew that company to 100 million. I mean, Ken, that's an extraordinary achievement. And I mean, what you've done since then makes that achievement, maybe not seem as significant as some of the other things that you've done since. So that's incredible. That's really incredible.
Well, thanks. It's been a fun ride, and honestly, I love the dental industry now. I never want to do anything else other than help dental groups and dentists and everybody in the dental industry.
Well, we'll keep you, Ken. We'll keep
another
you.
Another thing is you're a prime example of, if you never quit, you never lose, right? Because you started from a company that failed to working for corporate, then breaking out and being your own consultant. And I just think that's a crazy testimonial. And it's very inspiring.
It is. It
Thank
really,
you.
really
I
is.
appreciate that. Those are very kind words, and they don't fall. I don't take that lightly, because everybody out there that's listening to this, they're listening to it because they have this desire to grow, right? They want to learn, they want to be better, they want to do better. And ultimately it's because we care about others and we want to add value to them and figure out a way to help them grow. So that's always been at the core. And I'm a growth junkie. I love all the complexity and the harriedness and the craziness of everything that is trying to build and grow businesses.
I mean, no pun intended either. I mean, you go to the gym too. I mean, you growth junkie in that sense maybe as well, huh?
I'm not trying to take over the world with bodybuilding. It's more about just keeping myself in good physical shape. I'm not sure that I'm like an impressive specimen that anyone at the gym would think was amazing, but it makes me feel good and
of course,
keep me young, hopefully.
Of course, no, you look really young. So not many people can rival your experience in the dental industry. I mean, let's just face it. It looks like you've brought your decades of knowledge into your latest venture, Accrudent, which is awesome. Can you talk to us a little bit about the inspiration behind Accrudent and what your vision is for the future?
Sure. I think there are two things. I'd been having that entrepreneurial itch for a little while. And then my son, who's the co-founder with me, he's my co-founder. He came to me last summer, and he's a cybersecurity major in college. And he said, Dad, all my friends are going and getting jobs with like the IRS and all these amazing places. And he's like, you've always been entrepreneurial. And he's like, you've taught me to not really want to work for somebody else, but to actually build my own thing and do my own thing. He's like, how do I do all that? And it was the perfect confluence of minds where we just were on the same plane of, well, I want to go do something. He says, well, I want to go do something. And we said, well, how about if we do it together? I did drag him into the dental industry in 2017, and he learned IT and all those kinds of things. And he's become a phenomenal
match made in heaven. That's incredible.
Yeah. So it was a combination of several things that just ultimately told us, yeah, it's time to do this. It's time to build this.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. I think that your vision for the dental industry is really going to, shape how a lot of dentists approach the concept of ownership and growth, especially through your new venture. I think working with your son on this is going to be a very exciting, opportunity for you guys and for anyone that decides to, work with you. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. It provides some really unique opportunities, and like I can give you an example where just over the weekend we did a kind of a 4-hour session because we needed to revamp and do a whole bunch of things to the business. You guys know this. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
You just got to burn the midnight oil and get stuff done. But he and I were at odds, like totally different opinions on several issues of how we should be moving forward and doing things with the business. And we treat each other as equal partners. And in that regard, we conflicted, figured out how to work through it, and ultimately come to a far better conclusion than if my idea had succeeded or his idea had succeeded. And it's turning out to be, I think, a really good experience for both of us, and a very meaningful partnership where we never care about who is right. We only care about what is right.
Right. That's awesome. I love that. Absolutely. That's the only way to do it.
So Ken, it's obvious you've been around the block in the dental industry, right? Could you share some insights into the current opportunity that exists in group dentistry versus solo practice in today's landscape?
Sure. We're facing actually a lot of challenges right now. If I'm going to be honest, the industry is. I think one of the biggest challenges, but as you know, challenges are just cover for ultimately opportunities. But one of the challenges is the struggle financially that several large DSOs have had, and we've had some almost go belly up. We have some that are in receivership where the bank has kind of come in and taken over. We have things like that going on. It creates tremendous opportunity for those who build their business the right way. What happened was we had businesses that were over levered, and they got themselves in trouble, and ultimately that can create a very, very painful situation. I think there's a phenomenal lesson sitting right there in front of us that says fiscal responsibility is number one, because the people who lose here, maybe the bank loses, maybe the owners lose in some way, but ultimately it's the patients that lose because practices are getting closed or practices aren't offering the same level of services and the level of care that they were before. And so I think that it's really, really smart right now to be thinking about fiscal prudence and about the right way to build a business, and not I don't know, back in the day we called it rack 'em and stack 'em type of a model where you're just adding practices for the sake of adding practices to your group.
Right.
And so I really like where we're at right now, because I see a pullback, and a pullback means everybody's being thoughtful and they're thinking about the right way to do things, and they are caring about, hey, instead of just thinking I can get paid a 10x of EBITDA anytime I want, and I can just sell my business, to those opportunities completely drying up. Guess what? It means we all have to be better operators, and we all have to be better businesses, and be more fiscally prudent, and be more about doing what is the best outcome for the patient. Because that's the reason why I'm in dentistry still, is just the alignment. Because as soon as we get aligned with doing the right thing for the patient, then ultimately that means the doctor's winning. That means that the staff is winning. And then that also means that the organization, whether it's a single doctor office or it's 50 location DSO.
Absolutely. So if we could dig more into the group dentistry side, what would be helpful advice for a dentist that's considering starting a group or partnering with a friend or somebody to start a group?
This is how I think about it. As soon as you go, by the way, 1 to 2 practices that's the hardest. That's the hardest thing to do. You're doubling.
Right.
And you can't I guess take it for granted or not not see the level of importance of getting things right. The biggest challenge that I see when a dentist wants to go from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or 3 to 5 or whatever that number is every time that they add a new practice, they're creating more complexity.
Mm-hmm.
And with that complexity, they are starting to proliferate it when they're saying, here, let's do this practice. And now let's have RCM be done by this group over here. And we're going to centralize these services. But it turns out those services are a total disaster. And they end up messing everybody up across. The biggest challenge always is this thought process of let's bring everything together and it's going to make everybody better. But nobody actually knows how to organize that. Nobody knows how to handle the complexity and build out ultimately what we call the platform, the DSO platform that delivers these non-clinical services that support, that should be helping. But when you proliferate a disaster, you're just going to get more disaster. So the number one thing, like when somebody wants to go from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, is you just have to be so thoughtful about what are going to be the non-clinical services that are offered, and how are you going to use best practices to actually execute on those things. Like I have a group that we're consulting with right now. They're 30 plus locations. They have a very small RCM team in complete overwhelm. And they're like, all right, here we go. We're going to centralize this now. And I'm like, but wait a minute. You guys don't
that wasn't done already?
On a one-off practice basis, you guys have completely different procedures going on. Centralization, all it's going to happen is going to take all that disaster and mess and create massive confusion through the organization, and you're just going to proliferate it. And so it's that type of thoughtfulness that's needed for those who want to build a platform and who want to try to grow. It's being thoughtful and responsible around those types of things, and being so thoughtful and so careful about every step and every move.
Wow. I think that you nailed it right on the head, Ken. I feel like you have to be so careful. I couldn't agree more. If you feel like, you have to get additional help to ensure that the processes and systems that you have in place are scalable, right? Like if you have one practice, what works for one practice likely isn't going to work for 3 or for 5. If it does, that's great. But you want to confirm with professionals that what you have currently in place is enough and is sufficient or will work at a scalable level. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'll layer just one additional thought on, and that's that when you go to scale, the most important thing is the foundation of this is going to actually add value to what we're doing, and it's not going to detract from our ability to drive profitability and earnings. Because what I see is there's sort of two ends of the spectrum. One is they way overbuild the support services, and the other is they're way too lean on the support services. And they're, as you go stages and phases, you have to be thoughtful about each one. And the example, I can go back to that very first company I was at where we grew from 30 to 100 million. Guess what? At 35 to 40 million, we had to break everything and then put it back together again.
Wow.
And then we
powerful.
would do it again after another 20 million, and then do it again. You have to abandon, you have to burn the boats, you have to do, whatever terminology you want to use.
Yeah.
Because it becomes outdated. It becomes old. It becomes the old way of doing things when there are new and better ways. And so,
wow.
And there are some CEOs and some leaders who are adrenaline junkies, and they're like, all right, let's break it all again and let's go almost for no purpose. And then there are those who are cautious and nervous and, well, I don't know if we're really ready to grow like that yet. So you need both to bring a good sort of equilibrium and calibration about what the right next step is in growth. But you have to be willing to abandon the old, because as you guys know, technology, everything up, all this new stuff is coming at us, and we have a responsibility to figure out, can we improve, and can we still drive amazing patient care.
That's so powerful, Ken. I mean, it makes sense that what got you to 30 million isn't what's going to get you to 100.
Yep.
You know, like it's completely different. You need to think at a different level. The problems that $100 million group or company face are so different from those faced by a $30 million group, or the problems faced by one practice doing 1 million or 1.5 is much different than those faced by 2 or 3 practices doing 3 to 4 million. You know, so that's really powerful. Thank you so much for, identifying that. So next question, Accrudent, they offer complimentary 250-point comprehensive analysis to provide an in-depth report about the health of an existing group or a DSO or a practice. That's incredible. What are a couple of the most important points of your analysis that you believe provide the most value?
We actually have it all organized based on the non-clinical services that can be provided as support to the dental practices and the clinicians, everybody that's working at the practice level. And so obviously I have a bent toward the financial to our financial frameworks and having those in place so that you can see and understand what's happening with your business and building and growing it in a responsible way and in a way that will create the financial outcome that you're looking for. You might want to build out whatever you're building because you want passive income at some point down the road as you maybe replace yourself with associates, or you may want to grow a big group. And so I think that all of the financial frameworks are absolutely critical, that those are in place so that visibility can be there. And then the questionnaire goes through and looks at, okay, where are you at with clinical compliance? For example, right? Are you doing the right trainings? Are you making sure sterilization is occurring in the right way? Which often that gets passed off, or that gets overseen by somebody that's in a non-clinical role that is, looking at your group of practices and doing those things. And so we could literally go down the list of all those services, and that's where the focus is. And the place where I think our organization shines is, and it's probably just because I've done this so many times, is we can help figure out how to profitably grow those non-clinical services that are supporting the practice, but also not eroding earnings because we've decided to, overhire or put things in place that it was maybe too early to do in the process. I think, and we tend to learn more from the mistakes that we make.
Yeah.
If that's true, I have learned a lot in my life.
No doubt.
I'm going to continue to learn. And so that's the place. And that was the motivation for even creating in the first place. Is we're like, wow, I see some people that way underbuild, and I see some people that way overbuild. Very few actually figure out how to get it right, where you're providing the right level of support to the practice, but also you're being fiscally responsible and building a profitable business on the back end.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that's you got the perfect balance there.
Hopefully.
Absolutely. Right. So Ken, you've been on both the acquisition side and the DeNovo side. So my question for you is, what are some important details a dental group should consider when determining whether to expand through acquisition growth or DeNovo growth?
Sure. And I probably should say this up front. This is my disclaimer. I am a big fan of the DeNovo play.
Okay.
Although both work. And I've done both. So but the reason why I like the DeNovo side better is because when you're doing the DeNovo, you are the opportunity to build systems and processes that are replicable over time is much easier, because you're hopefully building each DeNovo the same as the others, and you're buying the same brand of equipment. You're putting processes and procedures in place that are going to be consistent across the brand. you're building these new DeNovo locations to represent. And so on that side of it, I think the management and the running of the organization is much easier and much cleaner than when you go to acquisition. And also, DeNovo is generally more expensive because it means you're having to build out a location. It's just a lot more expensive. Whereas sometimes when you're doing by acquisition, sometimes it can be a lot cheaper, depending on what multiples or what price you're paying for those locations. And so, both of them have their place. Both of them you can be very, very successful with. I've just found that the growth by acquisition, especially when they're disparate brands, they have disparate cultures, they have disparate everything.
Yeah.
It's hard to build a consistent business where I could sit back if I'm running this business and I've got levers to pull when I see, oh, wow, production is down over here, or wow, we've got a problem over here. Well, if that practice is different than every other practice, it's a very hard problem to go solve versus if I had levers to pull at any of those practices, anytime any problem or situation comes up. And so from a management perspective, from a leadership perspective, I think running DeNovos is a better way to do it. But again, it's more expensive. And so that's why I think a lot of people go toward the acquisition side because they can grow faster that way. It's just you have to be super responsible and super careful in that process that you don't end up with a bunch of disparate practices that it's a Herculean effort to try to get any change to happen or anything that you think of. I'm running this business. I want to go impact this, or I want to go influence this. It's harder to do the more disparate those locations are. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely does. I feel like, it's not easy to, but I'm saying it's possible to maybe get over levered either through the acquisition model or the DeNovo model, but you would know more than us on this topic specifically, but I would imagine that since DeNovos are so expensive, would it be possible to get over levered as a group and be in danger, just as we've seen with some DSOs over levering with, acquiring a ton of practices at a very expensive price?
Yeah. So on the DeNovo side of that, absolutely, you could get yourself in trouble. And the key metrics that you need to be focused on, and you have to be just relentless about executing on, is how much is it going to cost you to build it? How much of it, or how long is it going to take for you to get to a break-even month of production minus expenses, right? All that, you get to a break-even. And then how many months does it take, or how many years does it take before you get a full payback of that investment? And that includes build-out, includes all the working capital that's expended until you get to profitability, and so on and so forth. And so, and if I go back to the financial frameworks, building out a financial model that estimates all this out, number of patients coming in and what recare is going to look like, or whatever type of practice it is, it's a very, very helpful exercise to build out that model and then track yourself monthly and make sure you're on pace so that you don't find yourself running out of cash, don't have enough money to make payroll. Those are all very real things in business that happen. And I don't mean to trivialize them in any way here, because that's a stressful period of time if you're looking at the payroll number and you don't have that much in your bank account.
Yeah, right.
And so there, on that side, the responsibility, the way that you taper and you do everything you can to mitigate the risk of the DeNovo is the financial model and making it as realistic as possible. On the acquisition side, it's having a very clear strategy, not just buying things to buy them, but what is the reason? What is that bringing to the table to the group that's going to be helpful and meaningful? Or am I bringing in specialty? Am I expanding in the same city where there's just a high demand and I've got so many people in my practice, I already know so many patients that if I build another location within a 5 or 10 mile radius, like I already know that I've got a bunch of patients on that side of town. And so I can all but guarantee that practice is going to be successful. Or what are the clues and what are the things that and that is unique about your organization that you can execute regardless of whatever the situation is that you're putting yourself in.
I love
So
it.
again, acquisition, DeNovo, they both have their risks, they both have their challenges, and I will tell you this too: it's hard to be a company that does both,
Right.
because the big decision on the acquisition side is, are you a heavy integrator or are you a light integrator?
Mm-hmm.
Because if
Right.
you're going to go in and say we're buying this practice and now we're going to make it ours and change everything and do all these things, well, great. Like, you already know the staff is going to leave if you don't fire them before that, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
culture's going to go wherever, and so it's like, okay, if you're a heavy integrator, then you have to build a team around that. But guess what? That team doesn't know how to go do a DeNovo. That's a completely different function. It's like me saying, here, go ride a bike with your hands. It doesn't work. Yes, you've got hands, and yes, you can probably get on a bike and try to kind of pedal it, but it's nowhere near as efficient as if you could sit on the seat and pedal with your feet, right?
Exactly. No, I mean, it seems like the whole name of the game is systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that's, you could replicate and do so efficiently and effectively with just your main team. That makes sense.
Right. And I think that's amazing advice, making sure that before any of your deals are set in stone, planning out the financial statements, being responsible with how you handle DeNovo is just priceless advice. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah. So based on your company's name, we know you guys are experts on the topic of accrual-based accounting. So what's the difference between accrual-based and cash-based accounting? And at what point should a group or a DSO consider making that switch from cash-based to accrual-based?
So I'll answer the last question first, and then we'll work our way back.
All right.
My recommendation is to do accrual at 8 locations. And the reason why I say that is because you do not want to go past 10 locations. And so I'll say 8 so you can start thinking about it, start getting it figured out. And by the time you get to 10, you're in the process, or you're pretty much done putting the accrual accounting functions in place.
Okay.
If you could do it at 5, that's better. But again, because I come from the place of the longer you wait, the bigger mess and the bigger disaster you have on your hands that you've got to completely unwind and put back together.
Right.
And there are some who say, well, it's too expensive, or I can't this, I can't that. My response to it always is, if you think it's expensive to hire an expert to come in and help you do whatever it is you need to do to get your practice to the next level, wait until you see how much it costs if you hire an amateur who gets in there, bangs around, breaks a bunch of stuff, and creates a whole nother mess that's got to be unwound and undone. So
right.
That's how I think about accrual. I think if you're breaking past 5 locations, you should start thinking about it. At 8, you should start doing it, and hopefully that means by the time you're at 10 locations, you're there. Because ultimately, once a DSO gets to, this is just some basic assumptions here, but once they get to 20, 25 locations, that's when they're going to be bringing in a full-time CFO. And you want that full-time CFO to be able to step in and not have to deal with getting accrual accounting put in place.
Right. Have you been there before?
Yeah.
Yourself as a CFO?
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is that, like, most CFOs probably won't even come. If you, like, seasoned CFOs would be like, what? You guys are rookie. Like, what are you talking about? You guys are doing 25, 50 million in revenue and you're not on accrual? Like, you guys have problems. And so that's how I think about that. And in terms of the how to do it, it's actually not extremely difficult. Dental makes it a little bit harder because the dental practice software does not, they cannot, trust me, I've talked to all of them. They just don't want to support the items that are needed for accrual. And so we have to do a lot of work to go around all of their stuff and get the information we need to implement. Mm-hmm. But accrual accounting is the absolute gold standard for viewing and understanding your financial health as an organization. Period.
Okay.
If you're on cash basis, what happens is your financial statements are bouncing up and down based on your collections. And you guys know, like, sometimes we have a drought for 3 weeks because our main insurance company is, everybody went on vacation or whatever, and they're slow getting paid. And so what happens is you get this lumpiness all over in your business. And you're like, I don't even know how do I know what's going on, except that maybe over a year I could put it all together and average it all out. Whereas, what cash basis accounting does is it just looks at, okay, the cash going in, the cash going out of the bank account. Whereas when you convert to accrual actually looks at your production, and it looks at your payables, the supplies that you haven't paid for yet, right, that are sitting on your books. And it takes all that and it removes all the lumpiness, any messiness in terms of, and I probably should back up. I have kind of a good example of this. That very first company that was 30 million that we grew to 100 million, when I showed up in the first executive team meeting, I sat down, somebody else had the financial statements, put them in front of everybody, and a 1 hour argument ensued about why they were wrong. Well, these people didn't pay us, and so that's why this number is over here. And well, wait a minute, these people did this. And it's like, it was the most unproductive. And I finally raised my hand. I said, guys, I know I'm like the young guy in the room who doesn't know anything, but you guys are, what I thought in my head is, you guys are like idiots. What are we doing? We're wasting our time. And the truth is just around the corner. And at that time, I had no idea how to convert a company from cash to accrual, but I sure figured it out.
Yeah, I bet you did.
I wanted to end the argument so we could actually have the right conversation about building and growing the business. So that's I don't know if that's a helpful
oh
example.
No, absolutely helpful. Absolutely helpful.
And for dentists who want to build and grow and scale a business, accrual has to be there. And generally speaking, so in the 20, 25, 30 million range of revenue, the IRS forces you to. And I've heard that they may change some things with that, and I'm speaking generally here, you ultimately are going to have to do it anyway. If you're building a large organization, if that's what your plan is. And so my take is get it done right, get it done early, and you'll actually benefit and be making far better decisions than others your same size that haven't done that.
I love it. I think, you nailed it on the head. The accrual-based accounting just is a superior model. What if someone wanted to convert to accrual-based at a much earlier point? Would that be discouraged?
No, not at all. It's the reason why I put that, kind of 8 to 10 is because you want to make sure that you're all in on this, because it's going to cost money in order to get it done. Your accountant fees are going to be higher to support it, as well as to do the conversion. And so I like to kind of wait and see, like, okay, where are you guys really going with this? Because some dentists say, I've got my one practice, I'm going huge, I'm going to have 100 locations. And at 5, they're like, yeah, I'm out, I'm done. This is too hard. This is really difficult. And it is. I'm not saying that somebody that taps out at 5 locations is a bad person. Like it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
It's really hard to grow, and it's really hard to scale, and the people issues and everything that goes with it. And so I'm more just about trying to not spend a bunch of money that you're ultimately not going to recoup because you're going to stop at 4 locations.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes total sense.
When you've got 4 or 5 locations, the lumpiness you can kind of know because you're in the details enough that you can understand a little bit. Like you can kind of see what's going on. It's not ideal, but it's when you get to 10 locations and beyond where I don't care how smart you are, the lumpiness and the weirdness that's going on in the cash basis financials, you have to get to accrual so you can see reality.
You have to do it. That makes sense.
Absolutely. So Ken, you have a proven track record of driving significant financial growth, with every organization you've experienced with having 3 to 10x expansion under your leadership. What key strategies from those experiences would you recommend for a dental organization looking to achieve consistent and scalable growth?
Yeah, it's a great question. My answer to this is stop. Think, strategize, build a plan, execute on the plan, iterate as you go. That's it. If you just are thoughtful, and also you're going to want to add people around you over time. When you get that 10 or 20 locations or 50 locations, there are people that you're just going to need by your side helping you build and grow the business, because you're not going to know it all. And I found dentists to be wickedly intelligent people. They're smart and they're capable. But that's in the dental field.
Right.
If we talk about operations,
it's a different thing.
Some dentists can kind of convert to that and succeed there and lead some operations. Like AJ Acerno is a great example of somebody that has pivoted from, he's a great chairside provider and he knows how to run operations for a fairly large organization. But he's a bit of a unicorn in that respect. And so I think we have to respect what we're good at and where our comfort level is, and then we need to be willing to bring other team members in who can fill in the gaps of the organization to make it grow. And it's hard to do because people are hard. You're going to make a ton of hires that end up bombing because even though you interviewed as well as you could and you did so many things, there's just so much that you have to learn as you go. And then, I guess I'll just share this one example for you guys. This is how I think about it. I feel like the reason why we exist as human beings is because we're supposed to learn. We're supposed to grow from our experiences here. And so going out there and failing is okay. The reason why, you remember your failures way more than you do your successes. You learn way more if you're successful. Actually, it's bad if you're successful for too long, because you start thinking that you're the man and you're making all the right decisions and everything's going great. Getting punched in the mouth, getting kicked in the teeth, those are the things that teach us and help us learn and do what we need to do. And life wasn't designed to sit in a nice conference room with a nice glass of ice and water listening to some speaker speak. The statistics tell us that when you go to an event like that, after, it's 21 days, you remember less than 10% of what you heard. Well, guess what? That business that I started that failed, that still hurts. It's still real. And it's part of my psyche of how I approach the world, about how I approach business, and so on and so forth. So you have to also realize that you don't. In fact, I think it was Emmett Scott. Emmett Scott's the first one I heard say this. And I've worked with him for years and known him for a long time. But he always says, "There's only two outcomes: you either win or you learn. Failing isn't an option. Failing is the opportunity to learn, so that the next time, right, and the next time, and the next time,
right." I love that. Absolutely love that, Ken. It's so true. It's so true. I mean, when you win, it's almost like you don't know what you did right sometimes, so it's hard to repeat it. Or if you try and do the same thing the next time and you fail, well, then that win was almost a disservice in that regard, right? And so we have to consider those failures valuable. And I really also appreciate your comment about being willing to bring on team members, being willing to partner with those who know how to do things better than we know how to do them, and leveraging other people's experiences, leveraging other people's failures, to our benefit. And I couldn't agree more with you. As we've run out of time for today's episode, we just really want to thank you, Ken Kaufman, for coming on the show, for sharing with our listeners all of this incredible advice. If someone wanted to reach out to you and ask you questions or get help in any of these regards that we've discussed and beyond, what would be a great way to contact you?
Yeah, so the best way would be LinkedIn. You can schedule a 30-minute session with me if you want right there on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to chat about any of these things or anything else that you're concerned about. Just happy to contribute and build this great industry that we're all part of.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ken. Go ahead, Carter. Take it away.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in to the Revolution Dentistry Podcast. If you're finding value here, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're here every week to help you grow. See you next time.